Warning: everything you're about to see and hear comes from newspaper articles, court transcripts, and interviews with those involved. Thank you for watching. In September of 2007, convicted child killer Daryl Keith Holton is waiting to die on Tennessee's death row. Soon, his ultimate wish will be fulfilled. In just a matter of days, the confessed murderer will be transported to the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, where he'll be strapped to an electric chair and electrocuted until dead. After being convicted in June of 1999, Holton would begin learning the law with the intention of ending his life sooner rather than later. Holton would take steps to bypass automatic and voluntary appeals procedures available to anyone condemned under state and U.S. law. He would be offered advice and legal assistance from federal and state-appointed capital defenders. Holton would refuse to cooperate with them. In a documentary spotlighting his case, Daryl would tell Robert Blecker that he supported the death penalty, and he wasn't going to use his current situation to stray from his opinion. He would become a member of the so-called death row volunteers. But there were many who believed that Holton should be spared the death penalty, considering the rumors of mental illness. For others, they just didn't want the child killer to get what he actually wanted. Holton insisted on being put to death, and there was nothing that was going to change his mind. A father should be with his children, and Holton would soon meet a similar fate to that of his 3 boys and his young stepdaughter. What could drive a doting father to kill his children? Was it mental illness, spite, revenge, or pure evil that pushed Daryl Holton to the breaking point? To develop a firm opinion on the matter, one must go back to the beginning and analyze the events leading up to the deadly rampage on November the 30th of 1997. Daryl Keith Holton was born on November the 23rd, 1961, and he would become involved in the military at a young age. While serving in the United States Army in 1984, he would be stationed at Fort Jackson in South Carolina. Around this time, he would marry Crystal Holton, the mother of his victims, and that was the beginning of the end. Shortly after the marriage, Daryl would be reassigned to Germany, where he would administer a dental clinic. While there, the couple would have 2 children. Stephen was born in 1985, and Brent would follow in 1987. After his tour ended in Germany, Daryl would move to Georgia, where he was stationed at Fort Gordon. Near the conclusion of the 1991 Gulf War, he would volunteer to serve his country in Saudi Arabia. As for Crystal, she would remain behind to raise their sons, and she would give birth to Eric, who was hearing impaired, on September the 17th of 1991. While Daryl loved his military career, his marriage was starting to take a toll. Soon, things would enter a slippery slope and his world would spiral out of control. Shortly after Eric's birth, the federal government would incorrectly route Daryl's paychecks, causing big problems for Crystal Holton. While Daryl served his country, Crystal partied it up at home. During the fall of 1991, she would leave her children at home overnight while she went out to a music bar and dance hall. One of the children would go to a neighbor's house trying to find their mother. Police would be called promptly, but they would refuse to bring criminal charges. The Georgia Department of Children's Services would allow Crystal to retain custody of her children. As a result, Daryl received an emergency leave and flew to the United States. He would move his family into his father's house in Shelbyville, Tennessee, before quickly returning to Saudi Arabia. As for Crystal, she wouldn't stay put for long. She first visited a cousin in Indiana and subsequently moved to South Carolina. The children would remain in the custody of Daryl's father until he obtained a hardship discharge and returned to Shelbyville so he could care for his children. In June of 1992, he would divorce Crystal and obtain custody of the 3 boys. In late 1992, Crystal would become pregnant once again, and she would reconcile her relationship with Daryl. Daryl's stepdaughter, Kayla, was born on June the 22nd of 1993, and he would accept her as his own, even giving the girl his last name. While the couple would never remarry, they would live together with the 4 children for 2 years. The relationship between Daryl and his ex-wife would begin to crumble. Crystal turned to alcohol. She would drink heavily, and Daryl would blame her drinking for him striking her on several occasions. Eventually, she would escape the abusive relationship and move into a public housing complex in Murfreesboro, Tennessee with the children. But she would not end her relationship with her ex-husband. She would still allow him to buy her alcohol and give her money. Daryl did not like the public housing complex. The crime rate was too high, and the condition of the apartment was unsatisfactory. He continued to visit his children on a daily basis. By this point, Crystal was drinking several pint-sized bottles of liquor every week. Daryl would take the kids on Friday, return them on Sunday, but the string holding the pieces together was about to snap. On a Sunday night in 1995, Daryl Holton prepared to return their children to their mother's house. When he arrived at the public housing complex, he told the children to stay in the car. They did, and Daryl warned his ex-wife that she needed to get in if she ever wanted to see her children again. While she did not see a weapon, Crystal suspected that her ex-husband was packing, so she refused. Daryl would threaten Crystal that she was going to regret it before driving off. Crystal immediately phoned authorities, and Daryl learned about the call on a police scanner he had in his vehicle. At the time, Daryl was armed with a Derringer, and he admitted that he had contemplated killing his children, but the time was just not right. After learning about the call, Holton would drive to the police station and surrender the children to police without incident, but the threats would continue. He wanted to make it known that his ex-wife would severely regret it if she ever took his children away from him. At some point, the Tennessee Department of Children's Services would briefly obtain legal custody of the children, but Crystal was allowed to retain physical custody. On February the 27th of 1996, Daryl Holton would agree to an entry of an order stating that it would be in the best interest of the minor children that full custody be granted to the natural mother and visitation to be at the discretion of the mother. Daryl would continue seeing his children until late summer or early fall of 1997, when Crystal obtained an order of protection and moved to a new location. Daryl would not be made aware of the move, and he would not see his children again until the day he would end their lives. In fall of 1997, Crystal Holton would try her luck at romance once more. She would become romantically involved with Morris Rhodes and move into his home in Spring Hill, Tennessee in October of 1997. Daryl knew that his ex-wife and children had moved, but he had no clue where they had gone. He would not find out until November of 1997 when Crystal got in touch. Her first call to the garage would go unanswered. Daryl would return the call and learn that the children wanted him to take them Christmas shopping. Daryl was a bit taken aback by the claim. After all, he didn't think anybody remembered he was still their dad. By this point, he was worried that his children might be calling Morris Rhodes dad, and he never wanted them to think anyone else was their father. The couple would make arrangements for Daryl to pick up the children on Sunday, November the 30th. On the 29th, Daryl would call Crystal once again to ask if he should buy the children clothing during their visit. He also wanted permission to take them to a movie in Shelbyville and to the garage so he could show them the dog that he had been keeping. From there, it would become a waiting game. It was only a matter of time before Holton would put his murderous plan into action. He would later say that he intended to kill the children because they had been taken away from me and given back to me, taken away from me and given back to me enough. Sunday, November the 30th, was an ordinary day for the Holton family. The only one who knew something was wrong was Daryl, who was ready to unleash evil on those he claimed he loved the most. Gary Holton would visit his nephew at the garage before Daryl could pick up the children. He would say that Daryl was overjoyed about getting to see them. Short time later, Daryl would drive 26 miles north to pick up his children at a Walmart parking lot in Murfreesboro. The children were excited to see him. They ran up and gave him a hug before giving him a drawing that said, "From Brent and Kayla, I love you, Daddy." By that point, the plan was already in place. Daryl had hidden an SKS semi-automatic rifle in his uncle's automobile repair garage, and he had constructed 5 incendiary devices similar to Molotov cocktails. Daryl noticed that Crystal was happy, and that irritated him. He would tell investigators, "Kayla just wouldn't let go of me. As many times that I hadn't seen them for a while, and she grabbed me, and she wouldn't let me go." He never reconsidered his plan to kill the 4 children. He would play along to avoid suspicion on the children's part. Once the group left the Walmart parking lot, they would go to a McDonald's for dinner. After that, they would stop at the Funland Video Arcade before finally heading to the Hoolum Alley section of Shelbyville. Daryl would take his kids to the auto repair shop at 833 North Jefferson Street, where Kayla wrote a letter asking Santa Claus for a Tickle Me Elmo doll. Around 7 or 7:30 p.m., Daryl would make his move.